How's it going, everyone? Want to cover a couple of PlayStation notes. It actually seems like the PlayStation Store is making some very positive changes that are gonna help as far as discoverability and spam titles on the PlayStation Store. We'll talk about that. And also a new story that's been gaining a little bit of traction recently. Resistance 4 was pitched by Ted Price and Insomniac to PlayStation, but it got shut down by PlayStation. Now, there's a lot of talking points, and I see a lot of people reading the headlines and then freaking out over if this was recent. That is not the case, and I'll try to take you guys back to the early 2010s when Resistance 3 came out, and where PlayStation was at that point, and I really don't have that much against PlayStation turning down Resistance 4 at that time. But again, more on that at the end of this video. But first of all, the PlayStation Store spam removal, as noted on ShootTrophies.com. With developers speaking up on the issue of spam games and paid platinums on the PlayStation Store, it seems like Sony has stepped in as a bunch of PlayStation 5 games have been delisted as of February 2025. Now, these are spam titles. Developers recently spoke out about the poor state of Sony's PlayStation Store. Developer Random Spin Games has seen all of its PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 games removed from the PS Store. It's unclear whether this removal was a response to the developers or was just a coincidence on Sony's part. In a recent interview with IGN, multiple developers spoke up about the poor state of Sony's PlayStation Store and how difficult it is to navigate the store page on Xbox and compared to the Xbox store page. Yes, that is definitely an issue. One developer noted, "I was also told that while Nintendo and Xbox review all changes to store pages before they're allowed to go live, PlayStation just does one check near launch to confirm everything looks okay." There's a lot of just fluff and throwaway games, and it really became apparent to me when I was recently looking through game deals that were super cheap, or games in general that were super cheap, and you just see all of this garbage listed on it. And you see this on Steam as well, but what Steam does is they do have a new and trending section. Now, to be fair, on Steam, like, let's go to the new and trending. There does seem to be like a lot of NSFW stuff at times on Steam's new and trending page. Stuff like that, like, I don't know if you want that on the PlayStation Store in the first place, just because I feel like PlayStations are like consoles where kids are jumping on and getting on those storefronts all the time, whereas a PC, it's a personal computer. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm making too big of a deal about that, but nonetheless, a lot of those games have been delisted. Now, some of those games that do get listed and are viewed as like shovelware or just throwaway games, some of them end up being pretty decent, but at the case of just paid platinums, and then also you could do like PS4 and PS5 releases of these throwaway games, and then you take up 2 slots of promotion. I've noticed that that's a thing that some of these developers do when they release games on PlayStation. It'll be these like throwaway lame duck games, and it'll have a PS4 and PS5 release. They definitely just do that so they could take up 2 slots and not have it listed as PS4 and PS5, but 2 separate listings on PS4 and 5. I've noticed that when we work on our deals videos on this channel, of course. So that getting remedied, and it'll be a work in progress, and there's still gonna be games that find their way to the PlayStation Store, but some of it just needs to be pulled. And I get it, maybe some games are caught in the crossfire, but the PlayStation Store needs adjustment if nothing else. And not necessarily even you need to delist these games, but do a better job in promoting these games and funneling games in certain categories. Again, have your main promoted games be the games that are gonna be of interest to people, and also try to do something like what Steam does as far as the tailored sections and everything like that. I think that could be something that's rather effective, but we'll see if that ultimately does transpire. PlayStation generally just needs to make a lot of strides in that regard. Moving on from that, an area where I think PlayStation also needs to make strides is, you know, looking back at some of their past IPs, bringing back some of their past IPs and bringing them to PlayStation 5 in the future of PlayStation. One of those IPs I think a lot of people want to see come back is Resistance. Resistance was a marquee franchise in the PlayStation 3 days. It was on the PlayStation Vita as well, and on the PSP. Definitely can't forget about Resistance Retribution. That game was fantastic. And then we also had Resistance Burning Burning Skies on the Vita, like I said. That game, not as good, let's put it that way, but still a very, very notable IP on PlayStation that people want to see back, if nothing else, a HD collection or, you know, a complete collection on PS5. And Insomniac actually wanted to do a Resistance 4. In a new interview with Kinda Funny Games, Ted Price, who just stepped down or retired from Insomniac, I should say, was asked about a favorite game of his that was pitched but never greenlit. Price said this: "Yeah, I'll share one. Resistance 4. We did pitch that one, and it was a wonderful concept, and it just, in terms of timing and market opportunity, didn't work out, but it was the result of a lot of Insomniac team members being passionate about extending the story further, because I do believe that Resistance has set up a really cool alternate history base where anything can happen with the Chimera, and where they go and what their origins are. Personally, I love this franchise. I was fortunate enough to be creative director on the first 2 Resistances, and I will remember many, many moments, good and bad, when it comes to the development that taught us all a lot about how we can elevate ourselves under some pretty difficult situations." Now, it isn't clear as far as when this pitch was made. I would imagine it would have to have been after the release of Resistance 3, shortly after, maybe a little while after. Now, the early 2010s were really interesting for PlayStation because there were a lot of PlayStation exclusives coming out. However, if you were there for like the latter stage of the PS3 era, it did get to a point where it honestly felt like there were so many PlayStation exclusives just getting spammed out. And I don't even say spam in a bad way. It was a lot of marquee titles coming out, but some of them just commercially did not resonate. Resistance 3 was one of them. If you look at the commercial numbers that this game pulled, especially in comparison to like Resistance 2, Resistance 3 did not blow it out of the water. I look at games like Starhawk, Mod Nation Racers. That era just brought so many games that commercially weren't these slam dunk home runs, but we look back at Resistance with absolutely reverence. Now, I think this is a case of absence makes the heart grow fonder. I think in 2025, if they announced a Resistance 4, I think people would be excited for it and it would do very well. However, back then, if we are talking about just coming off the heels of Resistance 3, and what Insomniac could do, and bear in mind, Insomniac at that point was working on other titles, like Inversion was coming out. They didn't really, after Resistance 3, they did Ratchet All for One, Inversion had come out, they did another Ratchet, like, spin-off title, then we had Ratchet 2016, and then they got cooking with Spider-Man, so that, like, mid-2010, early 2010 period for Insomniac wasn't that barn burner of a period. Sunset Overdrive did also come out, and that game was awesome on the Xbox and PC, but they weren't getting as much attention as they are getting now. And like I said, I think Resistance would do very well now, and if nothing else, an HD collection of Resistance I think would do very, very well. And yes, the world of Resistance, the lore of Resistance, I think there's so much potential in that. Just this world overrun by the Chimera, I thought it was so cool. And Resistance Fall of Man was really that marquee PlayStation 3 title, and then Resistance 2 brought in 64-player multiplayer, and I think that got a lot of people excited. Resistance 3, a lot of people would say it had the best campaign out of the 3 games, and it was a really well-received game critically. It's just commercially, for whatever reason, that game did not resonate at a high level, and I totally understand why in 2012, 2013, if Resistance 4 was brought to the table to PlayStation, they would be like, all right, let's pass on this for now. But, you know, now I think, again, absence makes the heart grow fonder. I think, at the very least, do a Resistance collection, see how that's received, and then if it does well, do a Resistance 4. That's kind of been the Capcom playbook. You know, do Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen HD, and then Dragon's Dogma 2 gets greenlit. Do these collections, Okami HD, then Okami 2 gets greenlit. Onimusha, now Onimusha gets greenlit, so on and so forth. I don't know why Sony just hasn't gone to that playbook. Instead, we got Concord and Fair Game coming out. Like, again, I'm not here to have a meltdown about live service again, but nonetheless, I think doing these complete collections of these games just make a lot of sense, even if you're not ready to greenlight a Resistance 4 right now, which I could understand. But that'll do it for me. Again, PlayStation Store making some much-needed changes, and as far as Resistance 4 goes, yes, it was pitched, but ultimately didn't get greenlit, and I totally understand why. If this is going back to 2012, 2013, it was a different time than it is now, and I think now there's an opportunity to just do an HD collection, see how it does, and then, you know, if it does well, Resistance 4 might get greenlit after that. That's how I would handle it, but that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Sound off there. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.